The slam of the door echoed in the half-empty parking lot. Agents Wells and Morrow stepped out of their car, their dark suits catching the light of police cruisers and EMS vehicles. They stood for a moment, looking at the front facade of the Velvet Vault. The building was a low, single-story affair, mostly unpainted cinder block, tucked between a laundromat and the vacant storefront of a defunct landscaping company. Through the large, grimy front windows, they saw every internal light was blazing, illuminating a surreal scene. The stage was empty. The seating area, a swatch of vacant chairs. A half-dozen uniformed police and crime scene investigators moved with a quiet, methodical precision. "This is where a vampire sings?" Agent Morrow asked, his voice flat as he surveyed the dingy building. "Doesn't look like much." Agent Wells shrugged, then pulled her jacket straight. "We're not seeing the place at its best. On a Saturday night, I hear, it's the hottest ticket in Agravain." She absorbed the scene. The police cruisers on the curb, the yellow tape dropped across the entrance like a garland. A dry chuckle escaped her. "Something funny, Agent Wells?" Morrow asked, his expression unchanging. "I was just thinking of our interview with Officer Wood last night," Wells said, recollection passing through her pale blue eyes. "He lamented that nothing ever happens in Agravain. I imagine he's probably wishing that was still true." As she finished speaking, the front door of the club opened, and a man in a collared shirt, presumably Noah Teal, the club's owner, stepped out, talking earnestly with a uniformed man who bore the stripes of a county sheriff. Wells and Morrow exchanged a glance, then began to walk across the damp asphalt towards them. They intercepted the two men near a cruiser. "Mr. Teal?" Wells asked, her voice even. The man turned, his face a mask of weary exasperation, intermittently lit bloody red. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "And who are you people?" "I'm Agent Wells, and this is Agent Morrow. We have a few questions for you." "About the victim?" Teal asked. "No. We believe he was merely in the wrong place at the wrong time." Wells's gaze was sharp and unblinking. "Our questions are about one of your performers, who goes by the name Vampira." Mr. Teal's eyes narrowed, and he stared for a long, uncomfortable moment. Wells got the distinct impression he was thinking more than he was saying, running a quick calculation on what he could admit and what he could hold back. "We know you're a man with a history, Mr. Teal," Wells added, her tone still blandly polite. "All that was a long time ago," Mr. Teal said quickly, shifting his weight. "I always find history has a way of catching up with us," Wells replied, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "I was thinking we could pick up with Max awakening in Professor Thotty's guest room. He got a solid sleep, so his HP is restored to full. Narratively, he feels much better, and his injuries, which are all clean and bandaged, aren't nearly as bad as he feared they were the previous night, when he was dealing with shock and fatigue. I think he takes stock of where he is." He looks out the window.
It's late morning, maybe around 11 a.m., and the sky outside is a gentle gray with a light drizzle falling, casting a soothing atmosphere over the scene. The fog has lifted.
I think Max gives himself a brief moment to appreciate the peaceful morning, leaning back sleepily in bed. Then he remembers Ruby in the events of the previous night, and he's suddenly wide awake. He gets out of bed.
As he searches for Ruby, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafts through the house, drawing Max's attention to the kitchen. Given Max's concern for Ruby and the weirdness of the past evening, I think he might be cautious but still approach. He probably wants answers, and he'll try to gauge Thaddeus's reaction to his questions.
Is Thaddeus standing in the kitchen near the coffee maker?
Yes, that's exactly where I imagined him. Near the coffee maker, pouring a cup, completely absorbed in the task, not yet aware of Max's presence.
Max clears his throat softly from the doorway.
Thaddeus turns to face Max, a warm smile spreading across his features.
Max asked where Ruby and Zephyr are.
Thaddeus's expression becomes slightly more serious, and he sets the coffee cup down before responding. He tells Max that Ruby and Zephyr stepped out early this morning.
I imagine Max is alarmed to hear that Ruby left in the wee hours, and he asks where she went.
Thaddeus looks uncertain, admitting that he didn't press Ruby for specifics, assuming she'd share more details upon returning. But now he's starting to worry about her decision-making after last night's events.
Max nods in agreement. Thaddeus interjects that he made contact with Mr. Teal, the owner of the nightclub where Vampira sings, and he arranged a meeting for noon. He says Teal might have insight into where Vampira is, and if they find Vampira, they might also find Ruby.
That gives them a lead to follow. A meeting with Mr. Teal could potentially shed some light on Ruby's whereabouts and Vampira's activities. Max might feel a bit more hopeful now.
I imagine they have some coffee and a quick breakfast, then head for the nightclub for the meeting with Noah Teal.
They arrive around noon, but the club looks deserted and quiet compared to the previous night's energetic atmosphere. The door is unlocked, though, so they let themselves in. The place is largely vacant and not open for business yet at this hour, with all the chairs upside down on the tables and a couple employees walking around doing routine things like cleaning the bar counter and sweeping. Max and Thaddeus look around for Mr. Teal, trying to spot someone who appears to be in charge, or at least someone who seems to be expecting them.
They see the head waitress, Lola, and she recognizes Max instantly, and then recognizes Thaddeus as well because he's a regular there. She says something about how worried she was about Max after he ran out of the club the previous night in all the chaos.
Lola seems genuinely concerned about Max's well-being, and her expression turns questioning as she waits for him to explain what brought him back to the club today, accompanied by Thaddeus. Max explains that Ruby ran out first, and he went after her to make sure she was okay. He explains that he met up with her, and after that, they ended up at Thaddeus's house. He explains that Ruby left in the wee hours to find Vampira, and now Max and Thaddeus are here to talk with Teal and find out more about Vampira, hoping to also find Ruby. He omits the weirdest sounding parts of his story, so Lola won't disbelieve all this. Lola listens intently, seeming to accept Max's explanation, but her eyes flicker to Thaddeus briefly, suggesting she might suspect there's more to the story than Max is letting on. Then she nods and leads them towards the back of the club. She gestures for them to precede her into Mr. Teal's office.
Max and Thaddeus head in.
The office is dimly lit, with only a few lamps illuminating the space, casting long shadows across the walls. Mr. Teal is seated behind his desk, his eyes fixed on Max and Thaddeus as they enter. Mr. Teal's greeting is polite, but guarded, his expression neutral, giving no indication of warmth or suspicion, simply acknowledging their presence and waiting for them to explain it.
Thaddeus says that he believes Vampira is at the center of what happened at the club the previous night, and he needs to know what Teal knows about her.
Teal leans back in his chair, steepling his fingers as he regards Thaddeus thoughtfully. clearly weighing his words before responding.
Max blurts that Ruby was drawn into this, and he needs to know what's going on so he knows how to help her.
I think Teal's expression changes at the mention of Ruby, his eyes narrowing slightly, as if considering how much to reveal. And then he says, Ruby was indeed drawn into this, and I'm afraid Vampira has been using her.
Thaddeus is intrigued by that, trying to imagine how that might fit into his own theories, and asks Teal what he means.
Teal leans forward, his voice taking on a more serious tone, saying that Vampira seems to have a certain hold on Ruby, and that Ruby's been acting strangely since she became fascinated with Vampira's performances.
Thaddeus asks why Teal thinks so, and whether or not he knows what the nature of Vampira's hold on Ruby might be.
Teal hesitates, collecting his thoughts before answering that he's observed Vampira using her charisma and stage presence to manipulate those around her. But with Ruby, it seems different. Almost as if Vampira is exerting some kind of influence over her that goes beyond mere charm.
Max is shocked and confused, and interjects to ask what Vampira really is, and why Teal and Thaddeus seem to be talking as if she's not just a human.
Teal and Thaddeus exchange a weighted glance, and Teal leans back in his chair once more, saying that Vampira is indeed human, but there's something unusual about her, something that sets her apart from everyone else.
Thaddeus says flatly that Vampira is undead, and she was raised by alien technology during an incident a few years earlier.
Max's eyes widen in shock, and he demands to know what Thaddeus is talking about, asking if he seriously expects him to believe Vampira is some kind of reanimated corpse raised by aliens.
Thaddeus counters that Max has seen aliens himself, and he should find this easy to believe.
Teal looks at Max with a mix of concern and understanding, suggesting that the truth about Vampira might be stranger than anyone realizes, and they need to figure it out before Ruby gets too deep.
Thaddeus asks Teal how in the world Vampira ended up singing at his club.
Teal rubs his temples, then begins to explain how Vampira showed up out of nowhere a few months ago, offering to sing at the club in exchange for certain accommodations.
Max asks what kind of accommodations she wanted.
Teal leans in closer, lowering his voice to say that Vampira demanded absolute discretion and freedom to perform however she chose, as long as she brought in crowds and kept the club's reputation intact.
Thaddeus nods slowly, thinking about this, speculating about what Vampira might have needed from the crowds.
It sounds like Vampira might be feeding off the energy of the crowd somehow, maybe using it to sustain whatever unnatural state she's in.
Max stays laser-focused on finding Ruby, and asks where Teal thinks Vampira is now, because he hopes to find Ruby with her.
Teal pauses, seeming to choose his words carefully, and says that the last he knew, Vampira often visited the old abandoned library on the outskirts of town, a place rumored to hold some dark history.
Do Max and Thaddeus know where that is?
Both Max and Thaddeus nod, familiar with the abandoned library's location, and Thaddeus mentions that it's a place he's been meaning to investigate due to rumors of paranormal activity.
Let's roll a die to randomly determine if Teal mentions that there were some government agents at the club earlier, asking questions about Vampira. 1 to 3 on the 6-sided die. Teal tells them they aren't the first ones to be here asking about Vampira. 4 to 6, he keeps that information to himself. Teal says, "Be careful." The events at the club last night attracted attention, obviously. But a pair of government investigators seemed more focused on Vampira than anything else. I don't know why. Just keep your eyes open. Thaddeus nods. Now, if both Max and Thaddeus know where the abandoned library is, and it's on the outskirts of Agravain, the same town they're already in, I assume it's a short, uninteresting drive, and we can cut right to them arriving there.
Thaddeus seems like the type who gets lost in thought when he's intensely focused on something. I can see him being quiet during the drive, sunk in his own musings and concerns about Vampira and what they might find at the library building. Max might try to break the silence, but Thaddeus just responds with brief, curt answers. They drive for a few tense minutes before they see their destination ahead. I picture the library as a beautiful, eerie sight, with vines crawling up the stone walls and flowers spilling out of the broken windows. The once manicured gardens are now a riot of color and texture, with wildflowers blooming amidst the remnants of carefully tended shrubs and trees. It's like nature is reclaiming the place, slowly covering up the scars of abandonment. I was thinking maybe the library just fell out of use over time. Maybe funding was cut, or the town's population dwindled, leaving it to decay slowly.
I remember in the original Plan 9 from Outer Space, the narrator mentions that the woman who was resurrected by the aliens and became Vampira had planted a garden in life. Maybe we can pay homage to that detail of the original with these flowers.
I like the idea of paying homage to the original story. Maybe the garden holds some significance for Vampira, and Mr. Teal thinks she might return there for some reason.
Do you remember what kind of flowers are mentioned in the original Plan 9?
Yes. In the original, they mention rose bushes. Maybe they still hold some special significance for Vampira, like a connection to her past or her humanity.
I like it. Rose bushes are such a generic thing to mention, though. It's like Ed Wood just thought about a garden, then wrote down that very first type of flower that came to mind, and went with that. Let's give them some kind of unique detail, at least, like maybe they're an odd color or something.
How about black roses? They'd definitely be unusual and could add a touch of eeriness to the setting.
Perfect. I can imagine it vividly. I imagine Max glimpses Vampira in the overgrown garden as he steps out of the car, gasps and stares at her as she stands with her back to him.
That image sends shivers down my spine. Her pose, frozen in contemplation, suggests a deep longing or nostalgia, don't you think?
Absolutely.
I'm picturing the look on Max's face as he sees her in this mystical setting, a mix of wonder, fear, and recognition. What do you think Vampira's expression would be like in that moment?
I imagine Max calling out to her.
He probably says something simple, like Vampira or hello, to get her attention, trying to sound calm and non-threatening.
Vampira turns to look, her face blank and unsurprised.
That lack of reaction would only add to the enigma surrounding Vampira. I see her remaining silent, her eyes locked onto Max with an unnerving intensity. Maybe she takes a step forward, breaking the stillness of the moment, but says nothing.
I imagine Max glances over at Thaddeus and says something. His eyes are only averted for a fraction of a second, but when he looks back, Vampira is gone. Max blinks, staring at the empty patch of black roses where she had been standing, trying to process what he's seeing, or rather, what he isn't seeing. He stammers for a second, then asks Thaddeus if he saw her too.
Thaddeus's expression remains vacant as he responds to Max. He probably says something cryptic or non-committal, leaving Max wondering if Thaddeus saw Vampira at all, or if Max just imagined the whole thing. Thaddeus's silence is almost as unsettling as Vampira's disappearance. I imagine they walk into the building and begin to look around. They probably move cautiously, their footsteps echoing off the walls as they enter the musty silence of the library. The air inside feels stale and heavy with decay, and cobwebs cling to the shelves and furniture like wisps of forgotten memories.
Are there still books?
There are definitely books here, though many of them are scattered across the floor or lying open on tables and windowsills. Some of the shelves seem intact, holding row upon row of leather-bound volumes, but others are bare, their contents either removed or destroyed.
This might be where Vampira does her reading, and how she became so familiar with classic literature.
That's possible. Maybe she comes here to escape the world and loses herself in those old books. It would explain why she references them so often. Do you think she might have left any clues or notes?
Maybe. Max and Thaddeus look through the dusty rows of shelves and tables, searching for anything which looks out of place by the sunlight which is slanting through the grimy windows.
They notice a few books lying open on a table near the window, as if someone had recently been reading them. One of them is a collection of Edgar Allan Poe's works, and another appears to be a volume of Shakespeare's plays. There's a small piece of paper slipped between the pages of the Poe book, with a few lines of handwriting on it.
Max tells Thaddeus what he found, then eagerly pulls the note out of the book.
The cursive handwriting is elegant. I imagine it's a quote from one of Edgar Allan Poe's poems, maybe The Raven. Something like, "Quoth the raven, nevermore," wouldn't fit, but perhaps a line from Annabel Lee, like "In her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea." That seems fitting, given Vampira's affinity for the mysterious and melancholic.
Yeah, that quote works. I think Thaddeus makes the connection between that line and Vampira's reanimated state. I wonder if she's saying there's something important hidden in her own sepulchre.
That's a chilling thought. If Vampira is hinting at something hidden in her former tomb, it could be a crucial clue to understanding her past and present.
I think Max takes the book and note, just in case, and they decide their next step needs to be finding out where Vampira's tomb is located, so they can check it for whatever is hidden there. But Max mentions that before they do anything else, they need to find Ruby and reunite with her to make sure she's okay. They return to Thaddeus' place and find Ruby and the others already waiting for them there. Ruby explains that they waited in Tana's hideout for a few hours till the sun was high in the sky and the fog had cleared. Then they headed for Thaddeus' place. In the original Plan 9, the aliens had tech that could project an illusion and make them look human when they needed to. So imagine Tana currently has that active. She wouldn't have walked down the street in daylight otherwise. So that illusion is probably still in effect as she meets Max and Thaddeus. But she explains that she's an alien and tells Thaddeus and Max everything about the situation that she previously told Zephyr and Ruby. Thaddeus and Max are astonished by it all. In the silence afterwards, the phone rings. Thaddeus clears his throat, then goes to answer. It's Noah Teal, saying that Vampira came into the club like nothing had happened and went to her dressing room. They can't believe what they're hearing, but they all leave the club right away. It's probably now early evening, and Vampira's performance is coming up soon. I imagine it's busy with people slightly on edge after what happened there the previous night, but also trying to act normal.
The patrons are likely exchanging nervous whispers and furtive glances. Some are probably hoping for another dramatic spectacle. Does Mr. Teal meet them backstage or somewhere else?
They walk towards Mr. Teal on the main floor near the bar. But before he can say anything, the ambient lights cut out, and Vampira appears on stage in the beam of a single spotlight.
The sudden darkness and spotlight create an electric atmosphere. Vampira's dramatic entrance captivates the crowd. She strode fluidly across the stage, her umbral dress coruscating like a waterfall in moonlight. Her makeup shone with jewels and sequins, and she wore a pharaonic headdress, the gold offsetting her lustrous black hair.
In Thebes by the Nile, where the sand was quite hot, lived a skinny brown stray who was named, well, he was not. He was just a good boy with a wagging brown tail on a nightly food mission that was destined to fail. He sniffed round the temples and statues of stone, hoping for scraps that the rich folks had thrown, a dry crust of bread or a pigeon bone chew was the height of the luxury this hungry dog knew. No more old Peter, no more dry dates. He whimpered, then barked at the sealed granite gates. Oh, this tummy is empty, a tragedy grand. Ain't it or am in this dusty old land? He howled at Danjum in the dark desert lail, a very small cab on a very big train.
Like everyone in the crowd, Ruby watched Vampira rapt, her eyes wide, her lips slightly parted.
He padded on past a ground pile of clay where a fish head was waiting. Hooray for today! But just as he stretched out his scruffy brown paw, a shadow descended, defying all law. It wasn't a vulture, it wasn't a bat. It hovered in silence, metallic and flat. A brilliant green light turned the city to day, and the fish had forgotten, he scooted away.
Green filters dropped over all the stage lights.
No more old Peter, no more dry dates. He whimpered, then barked at the sealed granite gates. Oh, this tummy is empty, a tragedy gram. And his dinner dong, I know old I am. He howled at Danjum in the dark desert lail, a very small cube on a very big trail. The ship made a hiss as it settled right down, just next to a cart on the edge of the town. A ramp slid right out and a creature stepped forth with huge almond eyes looking southeast and north. The little brown cow tilted his head, then sniffed at the green skinned alien instead. You're big and you're strange, he thought, giving a shiver. But have you brought treats from across the whole river? The alien waved a tentacle hand and cried. Yeah, I see.
Vampira sashayed across the stage towards a drummer revealed by another spotlight, playing a tarbuka, wearing an alien costume.
The alien quickly unpacked its whole bag, ignoring the stray with a desperate wreck. It wasn't a laser or plans to invade, just a three-layer sandwich the alien had made. The Caleb this new smell that made his heart sing. The alien yelled and began to pursue, but the little brown cowlip was already through. He ran past the Sphinx with the green piece of ham. Forget all the pharaohs, I don't give a damn. Galactic pastrami is the best. Tara.
The audience is enthralled by Vampira's unique blend of storytelling and music. Her song wove a spell around them, and after a moment of stunned silence, they erupt with enthusiastic applause. Does Ruby join in, or does she seem subdued compared to the others?
I imagine Ruby stays silent, staring at a vampire on stage, beginning to form an idea that just maybe the dog was a metaphor, and there was deeper meaning there.
Ruby's intuition is kicking in. She seems to be piecing together the symbolism in Vampira's song.
I think this will be a default skill roll for Ruby because she doesn't have anything which really applies here. So she needs to hit at least 8 to understand the hidden meaning of the songs she just heard. Ruby makes the connection. She says that song was about Vampira. Everyone turns and looks askance at her. Ruby says, think about it. The dog snatched food from the alien and not being pursued. We know Vampira is being pursued by the aliens. Is it crazy to think the reason is that she snatched some kind of sustenance from them? We don't know about yet. Thaddeus looks thoughtful and lets that sink in for a moment, then says, we'll ask her. And we'll leave it on that cliffhanger. Remember to click like on the video if you're still watching, and subscribe to the channel to catch the next episode.